We live in an age where authenticity is the ultimate currency. If you scroll through the polished feeds coming out of that Montecito mansion, the message is relentless. Live your truth. Own your story. Be real. It's a billion-dollar brand built on the idea of transparency. We are sold the image of a woman who overcame the odds, a modern fairy tale of a regular girl who worked hard and captured the heart of a prince. It's the story the world bought, the story the magazines printed, and the story that has generated millions in contracts. But what happens when the truth you're selling starts to look less like a biography and more like a carefully edited script? What happens when the people who know you best stop following the script? Right now, that glossy, perfect image isn't just showing cracks, it's facing a structural collapse. While the world was distracted by podcast deals and jam jars, a different story has been brewing in the dark corners of the internet. It's a story involving records from 1997 that were mysteriously sealed decades later, biographers hitting brick walls, and family members who have gone from jealous noise to terrifyingly quiet. We aren't talking about standard celebrity gossip here. We are talking about a timeline that doesn't add up, a past that has been surgically removed, and a secret so volatile that its exposure could rewrite the entire history of the royal exit. And the scariest part for the Sussex squad: the calls are coming from inside the house. The narrative isn't being dismantled by the British tabloids. It's being dismantled by the very past she tried to bury. Today we are digging into the missing years, the sealed archives, and the rumors that refuse to die. We're going to look at why top investigative journalists are baffled why a certain letter has changed everything, and what exactly happened in the late 90s that required a legal seal 21 years later. Grab your drink and settle in, because the fairy tale is about to get a reality check. To understand why this situation is so unprecedented, you have to look at the people trying to tell her story. We're not talking about random bloggers in their basements. We are talking about literary heavyweights. Andrew Morton written the definitive book on Princess Diana. He knows where the bodies are buried in the royal landscape. Tom Bower is known as the biographer that billionaires fear because he finds the dirt no one else can. These are men who have spent decades digging into the lives of the most powerful and protected people on Earth. But when they turned their magnifying glasses toward Meghan, they hit a wall. Both authors have publicly expressed a bizarre frustration. They couldn't piece together a coherent picture of who she was before Harry. It's almost impressive when you think about it. In the digital age, everyone leaves a footprint. We all have a trail of friends, ex-lovers, colleagues, and receipts. But with Meghan, the early adult years specifically, that transition from college to her early acting career, feel like a corrupted file. Morton admitted it was a struggle to figure out who she really was. Bower echoed that sentiment, noting that the favorable stories were easy to find, but the actual verifiable timeline of her life was full of voids. It's like trying to put together a 1,000-piece puzzle, but someone has removed the center 300 pieces and burned the box. You can see the childhood edges, and you can see the suits era, but the middle, it's blank. For someone who preaches about living your truth, there is a startling amount of energy spent hiding it. She tells us, don't pretend to be someone else. Yet her own history feels like a series of reinventions where the previous version was deleted. This isn't just about privacy. Everyone deserves privacy. This is about a public figure whose entire platform is transparency, yet whose timeline requires a forensic accountant to make sense of. The internet being the hive mind that it is, noticed this immediately. People started mapping out her stories: the college years at Northwestern, the embassy work, the struggling actress phase. When you lay these stories side by side on a timeline, they start to overlap in impossible ways. Years get skipped. Locations don't match up. It feels like watching a movie where the reel skips, jumping from scene to scene without the connecting tissue. And that jump cut effect is exactly what triggered the investigation that is currently unraveling the official narrative. For the longest time, the biggest threat to Meghan's brand was her half-sister, Samantha Markle. And let's be honest, in the beginning, the media and the public did a great job of writing Samantha off. She was painted as the wicked stepsister, the bitter relative looking for a paycheck, the jealous sibling angry she wasn't invited to the wedding. Every time she spoke, the Sussex PR machine spun it as a desperate cry for attention. And for a while, that strategy worked. It's easy to dismiss someone when they're shouting. But then something shifted. the tone changed. Samantha stopped ranting and started hinting. She stopped screaming and started waiting. This wasn't the behavior of a chaotic, jealous sister anymore. It was the behavior of someone holding a royal flush in a high-stakes poker game. She began dropping subtle references to buried stories and secrets that would change how the world viewed the Duchess. She wasn't manic, she was measured. And in the world of public relations, a measured enemy is infinitely more dangerous than a loud one. Think about the psychology of that. When someone screams, "She's a liar," with no context, you roll your eyes. But when someone says, "The truth about 1997 will come out eventually," and then goes silent, that plants a seed. It makes you wonder. It makes you look. Samantha realized that she didn't need to burn the house down herself. She just needed to hand the matches to the internet and let them do the work. She pivoted from being an antagonist to being a breadcrumb trail layer. The narrative flipped overnight. Suddenly, Samantha wasn't the villain trying to ruin a fairy tale. She was the whistleblower. She insinuated that the authenticity brand was built on a foundation of lies specifically regarding Meghan's past relationships and, more explosively, her medical history. She didn't need to produce the documents herself. She just needed to tell people where to look. And once the internet started looking, they found things that made Samantha's vague threats look a lot less like jealousy and a lot more like a warning. This brings us to the year that has become the holy grail for internet sleuths, 1997. If you go onto any forum, any comment section, or any deep dive video about this topic, 1997 is the number that keeps coming up. Why? Because that is the year where the official story and the discovered records seem to collide in a spectacular fashion. Here is the fact that sparked the fire. An inquiry was made to the California Birth Records Office. This wasn't a tabloid stunt, it was a citizen investigation. The response claimed that records existed under the name Rachel Meghan Markle for a birth in that time frame. But here is the kicker, the catch that sent chills down everyone's spine. The details are locked. We aren't just talking about a private file. We are talking about a file that was reportedly sealed or modified to restrict access. Now let's look at the timeline of the seal. It's not unusual for records to be private, but the internet sleuths noted that the tightening of these specific records, along with records regarding her first marriage to Trevor Engelson, seemed to coincide perfectly with her ascent into the British royal family. Specifically, late 2018. She marries Harry in May 2018. By the end of that year, the vault doors slam shut on her past. Why? If you are just a regular girl who fell in love, why does your history need the level of clearance usually reserved for state secrets? Why seal a marriage license or birth records 21 years after the fact? The timing suggests a cleanup operation. It suggests that someone somewhere realized that if the press got hold of the unredacted truth of the late 90s, the virgin bride narrative, symbolically speaking, would be destroyed. This naturally leads to the question, what is being hidden? The rumors range from a secret child given up for adoption to a surrogacy arrangement that predates her royal life. And while we have to be careful, these are allegations and theories, not proven court facts. The very existence of the lock is what validates the theory. If there was nothing to hide, the records would just be boring pieces of paper. The secrecy is the smoke that tells us there is a fire. When the internet smells a secret, it loses its collective mind. And in the rush to find the missing piece of the 1997 puzzle, the mob latched onto a name, Joe Giuliano. For months, this guy was the main character of the conspiracy. Theories ran wild that he was the secret first husband, the father of a secret child, the man erased from history. People found photos of a blonde guy from her college years, analyzed them, and convinced themselves they had found the smoking gun. It was a digital witch hunt. Forums were on fire with proof that was really just blurry JPEGs and wishful thinking. They called him the ghost groom. It was the perfect story the secret lover left behind for fame. But here is the problem with the internet. It moves faster than the facts. When people actually tried to verify the Joe Giuliano connection, the ground crumbled. There was no marriage license. No friends stepped forward. The dates didn't align. The Joe Giuliano theory collapsed under its own weight. It was a dead end. But, and this is a massive but, it served a purpose. In the world of intelligence and PR, there is a concept called a limited hangout, or a distraction. While everyone was looking left at Joe, they weren't looking right at the actual anomalies. Was Joe a planted leak to discredit the investigators? Maybe. Or maybe it was just the internet being the internet. However, the collapse of the Joe theory didn't stop the investigation. In fact, it refined it. Once the wild theory was debunked, the sleuths didn't go home. They got serious. They realized they had been chasing a ghost, so they started looking at the people who were actually there. They stopped looking for strangers and started looking at the family tree. The energy shifted from, who is this mystery man, to who in her actual circle is holding the bag. With Joe out of the picture, the spotlight swung violently toward a name that had been in the background the whole time: Sean Johnson, Meghan's cousin. To the average viewer, this name means nothing. But to the people deep in this rabbit hole, Sean represents the potential key to the entire mystery. This is where the speculation gets uncomfortable and incredibly detailed. The internet started doing what it does best: visual forensics. They began comparing the features of the alleged secret child, often referred to as Noel in these circles, to Meghan and then to Sean. They looked at nose shapes, eye-spacing smiles, and mannerisms. The theory that emerged is complex. It suggests a reshuffling of family roles. The idea is that perhaps a child was born but raised within the extended family to allow Meghan to pursue her career and eventually her royal destiny. This is a common trope in old Hollywood or high society scandals: the sister, who is actually a mother, or the cousin, who is actually a child. Is it true? We don't know. But the transcript of the competitor's video brings up a jarring point: the mention of a hysterectomy. This is a medically specific detail to just throw around. The rumor mill suggests that Meghan's medical history, specifically regarding her ability to carry children, is a major part of why the surrogacy rumors for Archie and Lilibet gained so much traction. If the 1997 event resulted in medical complications, it would explain the secrecy, the sealed records, and the confusing narratives around her later pregnancies. The Sean angle also explains the silence. If the secret involves family members who agreed to take on a burden to protect her reputation, their silence is bought with loyalty or perhaps fear of legal repercussions. It fits the puzzle better than the Joe Giuliano theory ever did. It explains why the family is so fractured, yet certain members are so quiet. It's not just a feud, it's a pact. Just when the heat was dying down, a physical piece of evidence dropped that reignited the entire powder keg. A letter, allegedly written by Samantha or connected to her legal team. When this document surfaced on social media, it wasn't just a screenshot, it was a weapon. The timing of this leak was devastating. Meghan was in the middle of a massive pivot. She was launching her lifestyle brand, trying to become the new Martha Stewart, distancing herself from the royal drama. She wanted to sell Jams rose wine and elegance. She wanted the conversation to be about her taste, not her truth. And then boom! This letter circulates, dragging the conversation right back to the one place she can't control: her past. The letter, whether you believe it's 100% authentic or a strategic leak, alluded to these unresolved family matters. It hinted that the official story of her estrangement was a lie. It suggested that the reason the Markles were cut off wasn't because they were toxic, but because they knew too much. You can't bring people into the royal fold if they know the skeleton in the closet. You have to discredit them, paint them as crazy, and cut them off. The emergence of this document validated the truthers. It gave them something physical to point to. And notice the reaction from Montecito silence. No defamation suit regarding the specific content of these new leaks. No public denial. Just an attempt to bury it with other news. But in the age of the internet, you can't bury paper. The letter is out there, and it acts as a permanent footnote to her brand. Buy my jam, but don't ask about the letter. We also have to touch on the yacht rumors, which are often grouped into this missing years saga. The transcript alludes to her living her truth versus the reality of how she climbed the ladder. The yacht girl theory that she spent time as a companion to wealthy men to network is one of those rumors that persists because it fits the gaps in her resume. But the most telling piece of evidence in all of this isn't a photo, a letter, or a record. It is the silence. Meghan Markle is a woman who sues. She sued the Mail on Sunday over a letter to her father. She sues when she feels her privacy is invaded. She is litigious. She has a team of sharks. So why hasn't she sued over the surrogacy claims? Why hasn't she sued over the 1997 child rumors? Why hasn't she sued Samantha into oblivion for the specific claims about her past? The legal experts will tell you, you do not sue for defamation if the claims are true, because in a court of law, there is a process called discovery. If Meghan sued someone for saying she used a surrogate or had a child in the 90s, she would have to prove she didn't. That means handing over medical records. That means unsealing the vault. That means opening the very door she locked in 2018. Her silence is strategic. She cannot risk discovery, so she has to let the rumors swirl. She has to let people call her names. She has to endure the speculation because the alternative, proving them wrong in court, would require revealing the very truth she has spent millions to hide. The silence isn't dignity, it's a legal necessity. So, where does that leave us? We have a duchess building a lifestyle empire on a foundation that looks increasingly unstable. We have a timeline that requires blind faith to believe. We have records sealed by the state, a family torn apart by secrets, and a sister who has turned silence into a weapon. The fairy tale was a beautiful product. It was packaged perfectly for a world desperate for hope. But products have expiration dates. As the internet continues to dig, as the biographers continue to chip away at the wall, and as the family members get bolder, that expiration date is getting closer. The tragic irony is that if she had just owned it, if she had said, yes, I had a messy past, yes, I struggled, yes, things were complicated, the world probably would have loved her more. We love a redemption arc, but we hate a liar. And right now, the gap between the authentic Duchess and the hidden reality is becoming a canyon that no amount of PR money can bridge. The truth is a funny thing. You can lock it in a vault, you can seal the records, and you can cut off your family. But you can't kill it. It waits. And judging by the cracks forming in the Montecito mansion, the wait is almost over. What do you think? Is the silence an admission of guilt or just a royal strategy? And what do you make of the locked 1997 records? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe as we keep tracking the story the mainstream media refuses to touch.